Hello, music fans. We're past the halfway part of 2024 now, so I think it's time to talk about my top albums of the year so far. And I'm going to do 15 albums here. And I focus, of course, on metal, rock, and prog, as I always do on this channel. And if you recognize some of the album titles, you might get a bit of a spoiler of some of the albums that I'm going to talk about in this video. Let's jump in. 2024 has been a great year for new music. So far, I've listened to 234 new albums, so that's a lot of music in 34 different subgenres of metal, rock, prog, punk, electronic, and more. If you look at this graphic, you can kind of see the most common genres I listen to are progressive metal, progressive rock, metalcore, and post-hardcore. So those will be the genres featured on my list. And number 15, I've got Is with Collapse the Wave. This is the 10th album by this American band, and it's symphonic progressive rock. I discovered this band by seeing them live. They blew me away. This is a great band to check out for fans of Yes. They've got male and female vocals, busy bass guitar playing, nice keyboards and guitars. They sometimes have parts that are a bit darker than Yes and closer to King Crimson in sound. The early single, There's Hope, is my favorite track on the album, so check it out if you want a preview. It starts with some King Crimson vibes and then has a great mix of male and female vocals. At number 14, I have Red Handed Denial with A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia. This is progressive metalcore uh, of the djent variety. It's got some post-hardcore, pop, electronic, and industrial influences. They are a great Canadian band. This is their fourth album. I love everything they've ever done. This is no exception. This band features Lauren Babick on vocals. She's one of the most powerful female vocalists in metal today. She can sing like an angel and scream like a demon. There's a lot of nice variety on this track. It goes on this album. It goes between being very, very heavy and brutal to like basically pop songs that are very catchy. The first single they released out of the album, Parasite, is the opening track. It's a hardcore, djenty metalcore song. It's got dissonant panic chords, intense scream vocals, but it also has great clean vocal hooks too. The second single, One More Night, is the one that I recommend as a preview song for people to check out. It just has amazing, clean vocal performance, perhaps Lauren's best on the album, that would rival the best pop singers and American Idol style singers. But Lauren is even better than most of those singers because she has that grit and that rasp and power when she's singing in her clean vocal style. This track, however, doesn't really display the full power of the band as it's more of a straightforward pop style track. So if this is you'll need to check out this track and others. You almost have to hear this full album to hear the full power of this band. The album continues to bounce back and forth between songs that sound like pop and some that are really hardcore, djenty metalcore, and some that mix both extremes. There are even parts with more electronic and industrial vibes. Great guitar playing on Eat Glass, which is a very fast and angry track. And then I love how they follow that track with a soft acoustic song called I Hope You're Happy. Like everything on this album, it's very distinct. It's very hard to pick a favorite track, but if you're a fan of bands like Spiritbox, Protest the Hero, Tesseract, Paramore, Sleep Token, and in general, like that kind of metalcore with a bit of progressive and djent edge to it, you should check this out. Number 13 is Triton's project with Messenger's Quest. This is their debut album, and it's progressive metal. They're a band from Thailand, and this has a little bit of jazz fusion and Latin influence in it. The album has three long prog epic tracks. One is almost 14 minutes, another is just over 20 minutes, and another that's just over 28 minutes. So, three very long songs featured on this album. If you're a fan of bands like Dream Theater and Ice Age and Terra Maze, I think you'll like it because it's that style of epic but melodic progressive metal with all clean vocals, virtuosic musicianship. Um, and I think it's like the band Ice Age a lot because their vocal sound also kind of reminds me of Styx. They have that powerful vocals that are really catchy. At number 12, I have Almo with Reconciliation. This is the debut album by this one-man musical project from Sweden. It's progressive metal. The man is Benjamin Almo Thorsel, formerly a member of a band called Frozen Realm, who I'm not familiar with. The first single I heard from this is Winterhound. It's great. It's reminiscent of Between the Buried and Me. Uh, the only negative I have on this album is when I started listening to the album, I thought the first two tracks were good, but they didn't really grab me too much. It took a little while into the album before it grabbed me. But when I hit the third track, Hope, it was a great track. It surprised me in a good way when the flute part kicked in. Panic Attack's also a great track. The title track, Reconciliation, here is my favorite. It's a 20-minute epic. It just blew my mind. It even has a Gentle Giant style a cappella syncopated vocal part. And I'm always a sucker for that. I can hear the influences here. Almo's influences, I'd say, are bands like Haken, Devin Townsend, and Between the Buried and Me. But if those are your influences, then I'm always interested because those are some of my favorite bands of all time. This album is a near masterpiece that any prog metal fan must hear now. Needless to say, I'll be listening to anything Almo puts out in the future. And in fact, I should say that Triton Project's album is also a near masterpiece. So everything from my number 13 and upwards is a near masterpiece. The stuff before was in my excellent tier. Near masterpiece tier is my second highest tier. And then my very top album is my one masterpiece of the year so far. Let's find out what's number 11. It's In Vain with Solemn. This is the fifth album by this Norwegian band. It's progressive death metal. Somehow I'd never listened to this band before this album, even though they're right up my alley. And based on the singles I heard from this, I knew this would be a contender for my top 20 albums of the year. In Vain reminds me of mid-era Opeth in their progressive death metal days, which I love. Some of the harsh vocals sound almost like black metal shrieks. Some sound like death growls. The clean vocals are catchy and anthemic sounding and are fairly high pitched. Check it out if that sounds appealing to you. At number 10, I have a debut album by Professor Caffeine and the Insecurities. It's their self-titled album. They're an American band for fans of Thank You Scientist, Coheed and Cambria, Protest the Hero, Hail the Sun, Idola, and Dance Gavin Dance, because it sounds like a mix of those bands. It's post-hardcore with that emo, progressive rock, indie rock, alternative, math rock, and power pop influences in there. It's got the jazziness of Thank You Scientist, the emo style vocals that all those bands have, but only clean vocals. There's no harsh screaming here. The fast guitars and drums that you hear in all those bands I mentioned, but also with the catchy pop rock hooks that Coheed and Cambria has. Check it out if that sounds appealing to you. My favorite track is That's a Chunky. At number 9, I have Vicinity with their album 8. This is the third album by this Norwegian band. The opening track on this album is amazing. It reminds me of the band Terra Maze, that epic melodic progressive metal. And of course, it's hard to avoid comparing to Dream Theater when you play this style of prog metal. They have great metal riffs, instrumental virtuosity, guitar solos, keyboard solos. The Singularity is a great song. It's my favorite on the album. Shape of Life is a softer song, also great. Check out this album if you like that epic, melodic, virtuosic progressive metal like Dream Theater and Terra Maze. At number 8 is the latest discovery for me on this list. It came out in May, but I only just heard it thanks to my cousin Sean, who shared a link to this band with me recently. It's a Relica and their album Secrets of the Future. This is progressive metalcore, kind of has some djent style to it, some alternative metal with pop, hip hop, and experimental influences. It's the debut album by this Australian band. Great female vocals here that's mostly clean singing, but there are sometimes some harsh screams. There's even some rapped vocal sections. There's awesome guitar riffs on here with some fast playing from time to time that sounds a bit like Protest the Hero meets Intervals guitar playing. Fans of djenty prog metal bands with female vocals will like this. Bands like Sordid Pink, previously called Destiny Potato, they should like this. If you're a fan of Spirit Box or Red Handed Denial, I think it sounds a lot like those bands, combining occasionally with the alternative metal sound of bands like Deftones, Tool, and the kind of rapped vocal and catchy pop hook sound that you might hear from bands like Linkin Park. If that sounds appealing to you, check out Relica and Secrets of the Future. At number 7, I've got Turbulence with Binary Dream. This is progressive metal, and it's the third album by this band from Lebanon. This is the first album of theirs that I heard, but I went back and I listened to all their albums, and they're just an amazing band. They hit out masterpiece, near masterpiece after near masterpiece, all three of their albums. It's right up my alley. The title track here is my favorite song. It's a prog epic. It's just very good prog metal, all clean vocals that are all really well done for fans of Tesseract, because it has a bit of that djent sound, but it isn't totally reliant on the djent sound, which I like. Also, fans of Pain of Salvation, I think will like this. Sounds a bit like a mix of Tesseract and Pain of Salvation, maybe with a little Haken, Leprous, and Dream Theater in there as well. If that sounds good to you, check out Turbulence and Binary Dream. At number 6, I have Azure with their album Thim. This is progressive metal with power metal, art rock, classical, jazz, and pop rock influences. It's a very eclectic sound. It's the third album by this band from the UK, another band that I never heard an album by before until this, but the early single I heard just sounded so great. I became really interested in checking it out. And upon first listen, I was immediately hooked. And I've gone back and I've listened to everything this band has done, and they're just truly amazing. All their work. I think fans of bands like Hemina and Native Construct will like this band, as they reminded me of those bands with their quirky but very powerful, clean vocals delivered with technical perfection and a lot of character in the vocals. They also have the odd harsh vocal here and there on the album for contrast, but it's mostly clean singing. I immediately had to check out the earlier albums based on this because I loved it so much. Their first two albums also near masterpieces. This new album, Fim, features a nearly 17-minute prog epic track as the second last track on the album. It's called Trench of Nalu, one of the best prog epics of the year so far, if not the absolute best. And another song that I really like on the album that I recommend you check out as a preview is called The Asdenus / Den of Dawns. If that sounds good to you, check out Azure and their album Fim. At number 5, got my favorite post-hardcore album of the year so far, which is Idola and Eviscerate. This is their 5th album. They're an American band. It's post-hardcore with progressive rock and metal influences. Check out the song No Weapon Form Shall Prosper for a preview. I love every album that Idola's made. I just knew this would be excellent at the very least, but luckily they released another near masterpiece. Lots of great clean singing here, catchy vocal hooks with a bit of that emo style of vocals, also some great harsh vocals and breakdowns. Some other great songs on here are Who of You Will Persevere? That's another great one. The breakdown in Fistful of Hornets is so awesome and dissonant. if you're a fan of bands like Protest the Hero, Hail the Sun, and Dance Gavin Dance, definitely check this out. It's in that category of this fast guitar post-hardcore music that I like. At number 4, I've got Loch Vostok and their album Opus Ferrex 2, Mark of the Beast. This is extreme progressive metal with groove metal, melodic death metal, power metal, heavy metal, and thrash metal influences. Check out the song Children of Science as a preview. It's the 9th album by this Swedish band, and another band where I love every album they've made. I expected this would be excellent. If you're a fan of Pain of Salvation, definitely check it out. It reminds me of them, but it also has harsh vocals and double kick drums and the odd blast beat. So imagine adding those elements to Pain of Salvation. That's what this band sounds like to me. The clean vocals are so powerful. They sometimes border on the operatic sounding when he belts out on those high notes. I know that vocal style isn't for everyone, but I think the vocals are great. And the album has some groove metal to it, some melodic death metal, power metal, traditional heavy metal influences, even some thrash, like on the song Senses, which is another one of the best songs on the album. At number 3, I have Ihsahn and his self-titled album. This is progressive cinematic black metal with classical and symphonic influences. Check out the song Blood Trails to Love for a preview. That's my favorite one on here. And this is the 8th album by Ihsahn. He's the frontman of the classic Norwegian black metal band Emperor. He released 2 versions of this self-titled album. One is a progressive black metal version, and that's kind of the version that I like to listen to and probably the main version. The other is an orchestral version without vocals. It's just kind of a classical companion piece to this album. It has the same compositions, but it's with orchestra. It's just orchestra, no screaming or like chugging guitars and stuff like that. Um, so I like the progressive black metal version that has the chugging guitars and the vocals. But if you just want to hear the compositional brilliance of Ihsahn and you don't like black metal vocals, maybe their orchestral version would work for you. The progressive black metal version also features all the orchestral sounds in the background. But Ihsahn just has such unique and boundary pushing style. Some of the most similar artists I can think of are, of course, his band Emperor, as well as the band Enslaved, who's also from Norway, and then the band Xanthocroid. Check this out if you're a fan of any of those artists. Blood Trails to Love has a catchy hook, and you'll hear quite a few catchy melodic hooks on the album between those harsh black metal shrieks. I don't think I'll go back to the orchestral version of this too much, even though it's great. I feel like it's just a bonus instrumental version of the album. But it's cool to have, just if you want to hear the more cinematic vibe of this. Some other tracks on this album that I love are Hubris and Blue Devils, and At the Heart of All Things, Broken. Check out Ihsahn's self-titled album. At number 2, I have Dune with Void Kind. This is progressive sludge metal with post metal and stoner doom metal influences. Check out the song Eleonora for a preview. This is the 3rd album by this band from the UK, and I love every album Dune has made. I expected this would also be excellent. If you're a fan of Mastodon, The Ocean, and Cult of Luna, I think you'll like this. Lots of great riffs on here that remind me of Mastodon. I love the opening riff of Eleonora, and I just love the riffs on all the songs. Reliquary is another awesome song, has some great time signature changes. Pleroma is also awesome, has the catchiest chorus on the album. And then the closer, Cobalt Sun Necropolis, is epic and awesome track. And then at my number 1 album of the year, my only masterpiece rating so far, it's Caligula's Horse with Charcoal Grace. And my favorite track on here is Mute. This is the 6th album by this Australian band. I love everything they've ever done. I think all their albums are masterpieces to me. This is no exception. I need some more listens to figure out where I rank this in their flawless discography. Some other tracks on here that I like are Charcoal Grace 1, Prey, and Storm Chaser. I love the vocal line at the start of the song, Mute. In general, the vocals on this album sound the best they've ever sounded in this band, just really stellar vocal performance. And of course, the guitars and drums are out of this world as usual, too. And I saw Caligula's Horse live as they were touring this album. They put on an amazing show. Highly recommend it. If you get the chance to catch them live, they are truly great. So that's my 15 favorite albums of the year so far. Now that we're past the halfway mark, what do you think of the albums on this list? And what are your favorite albums that have come out so far in 2024? Let me know down in the comments and stay tuned for next time. Peace out.